Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go.
Oh boy. Wow, dude. Wow.
Welcome back.
Sorry, we got a lot of planes in the air here at Score North today. If you thought the Twins firing their mutual parting of ways with their head of baseball operations was the big news today, or maybe, I don't know, Giannis potentially being traded to the Timberwolves, the Vikings come barreling into the poker room. It's like that scene from Casino Royale that the Bond movie that Declan referenced earlier this week, where everyone at the table has like a royal flush, a straight flush, and the Vikings come in, and according to multiple reports, have parted ways with general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah out on this Friday morning, January 30th, as the head of football operations for the Minnesota Vikings. 4 seasons, a lot more wins than losses in the scorebook, but a lot more losses than wins when it comes to draft history, and certainly the last 12 months of quarterback decisions and even some of the free agency money that was spent here. So, Judd, your visceral initial reaction here, live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, Kwesi out.
Well, first of all, much like with Derek Falvey, I don't disagree with this at all. In fact, I champion the move. But much like with Falvey, I find the timing extremely interesting. So Quazi was in Mobile at the Senior Bowl. And you know, I thought he might get fired right after the season. But the reality is this: ordinarily in this league, you know, by now you let the GM go through the draft and then you axe him after the draft. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a great process, but it's sort of how it works. But somewhere between the end of the season and now, the Vikings decided that that wasn't going to work. I want to read you a tweet that Adam Schefter just put out after he had the news of the firing itself, okay? Schefter tweeted in the last 10 minutes, throughout the season, there was talk about an underlying tension in the Vikings building in league circles. One league source said it had been, quote, ugly in Minnesota. Then today, the Vikings fired Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. And the only thing off the top of my head, Phil, that I can think of is Kevin O'Connell officially won the power struggle here. I think that there was some dissatisfaction, certainly, from O'Connell's standpoint on, as far as we know, Quasi had the final say on the roster. Yeah. I thought that O'Connell, when he signed the contract extension, had got some more say, but clearly it was not sufficient. Quasi's drafts speak for themselves. They're not good. The 2022 draft being the poster child for ineptitude, but there's other missed picks that fall on his plate. And, you know, make no mistake, at the end of the day, he had the GM title. So we can say, well, it was this guy's fault, it was that guy's fault, but he had final say. And the reality is, again, it's a move that I agree with, but I find the timing to be really, really interesting. And I wonder if there was a final straw here that the Wilfs finally said, this is unworkable and we have to make a change. And unless this is broken, I have not seen who has been chosen, at least on an interim basis, to replace him as draft preparations still very much continue. Yeah. Keep in mind, Senior Bowl done, Combine around the corner.
Did you, sorry, I was organizing producer troops there while listening to you talk to. Did you see this statement from the Wilfs that just came out?
No, I did not.
Okay, we'll get to that right here. So, statement from Mark and Ziggy Wilf. Nice letterhead, by the way. Nice little gradient purple here on this with some Vikings logo. Very nice. Mm-hmm. Following our annual end-of-season organizational meetings over the last several weeks, and after careful consideration, we have decided it's in the best interest of the team to move forward with new leadership of our football operations. These decisions are never easy. We are grateful for Kwesi's contributions and commitment to the organization over the past 4 years, and wish him and his family the best in the future. Effective immediately, wow. Executive Vice President of Football Operations, Rob Brzezinski, will head our operations through the 2026 NFL Draft. Rob is an OG, man. Like you covered that. We covered that guy 20 years
He took
ago.
the job in 1999. I think
Yeah.
he came from the Dolphins in 1999 to manage the cap at the time.
He's been one of the best capologists
He is.
in the
Yep.
NFL.
Yep.
Love me some Rob Brzezinski. So Rob brings tremendous credibility and experience, understands our roster, and has the ability to build consensus and rely on the expertise of our personnel and coaches. After the draft, we intend to conduct a thorough search to identify our next general manager. Building a team that can contend for championships drives us every day, and we look forward to bringing our fans the success they so deserve.
Let me give you a theory then off the top of my head. And by the way, in the short term, I like this move. I would not have appointed, and I don't know if he's staying, Ryan Grigson to that job. I think that Rob is a guy. Now, is Rob a football guy? He's been around forever. I wouldn't call him a football guy, but he is very smart. He's very savvy. He can, I think, make a decision without it being, 8 people trying to tell you what to do and you're split. And I also, so here's my theory though. If I'm not mistaken, the story in San Francisco is this. Kyle Shanahan, I believe, played a major role in John Lynch being named the GM. So when that process played out, it wasn't like we're going to bring in a boss for Kyle. It was we're going to have Kyle play a key role. The way that this is unfolding, I would not be surprised at all. And we could disagree, and we could say that this is a bad idea, but it feels to me like it's unfolding like that, where Kevin O'Connell will have a major say on the GM, and that they will not be, it won't be I'm your boss. It will be a situation where they work together. And I say this because if this was not the case and you were going to bring in a new GM as O'Connell's boss, he didn't hire O'Connell. I don't think O'Connell's in trouble. I think the Wilfs like him. So I think what we're going to get is we are going to get a situation where Kevin O'Connell actually sort of plays the role of GM in helping hire the next GM of the Vikings.
Do you think this eventually, in terms of structure, do you think that Kevin O'Connell will report directly to the Wilfs, even with a new general manager coming in sometime in the next several months? Or do you think they'll hire someone, even if Kevin is helping with that process, that slots in terms of hierarchy between ownership and KO, and that new person would eventually have like 53-man roster final say? I think Kevin's going to get 53 final say on this. I think out of this whole thing.
I agree with you right now. Like this is clearly a power struggle was won. Like that's the way I see this, plain and simple. And look, I mean, if you're O'Connell and you weren't in charge of the drafts, now I do think that he was all in and a huge part and the driving force on the McCarthy pick. But let's just take the drafts, all right? If you're O'Connell, and I talked to you about this a couple days ago on PD, Phil, I mean, there were sideways shots more than once after the season about depth and a lack thereof. And that's code for we ain't drafting well. So yes, now I don't think a coach has had 53-man say fully since Brad Childress. And I know the Wilfs didn't really like how that went, but I would guess that if with Quazi gone, I would guess O'Connell will have say on the roster, and the GM won't report to O'Connell, but I do think O'Connell today, his stock within how much say he has in TCO Performance Center has gone up.
Yeah. Yeah, it has felt, you never get the full curtain pulled back in a fairly well-run organization. I mean, the Vikings are not like a toxic organization, but it has felt like there's some toxic vibes and pockets throughout the last year and a half, maybe going back 2 years. Yes. And the kumbaya nature of the initial hirings in 2022, and we're going to be all together and collaborating, and even the front that they put up at press conferences. And the fact that like they went from doing joint press conferences the first couple of years to then like I don't know whose decision that was, but how about Kevin goes and says what he thinks, and then Quasi can come in after that. There's been a feeling that there's some cracks in the foundation internally, and I have to imagine if you're the owners, you're the Wilfs, and you're trying to exercise patience. You don't want to be the Jets or the Browns and some of these organizations, the Raiders, that just like get mad because they had a bad season and just fly off the handle and fire. But when you started to add up the different things that misfired over the past 12 months, the quarterback position just it was a couple major bets that did not pan out for the Vikings. You were probably and the draft failures, you were probably thinking about, okay, is it time to make a move at GM? And if we're going to, do we do it in like January where there's a runway to the draft, or do we wait till after the draft because we've got the wheels in motion for Senior Bowl, etc.? They decided they don't trust Quasi clearly to oversee another draft process. And because they're $50 million over the cap, it is super important that they hit on some key players that could maybe be starters in 2026. And then, Judd, layered on top of all of that, guess who's starting in the Super Bowl as a favorite in a week from Sunday?
Yep.
The guy that you let walk out the door. And I think that if maybe we do a pie chart here of why this happened.
Yep.
But what we really want to know and need to know, and maybe some of this will leak out, is did Kevin O'Connell stand up and say, I'm not out on McCarthy, but he's not ready to do this at this level yet. And I want you make it happen for me, either Darnold or Daniel Jones. And when they came up 0 for 2 on those guys, now we have a problem.
And I think the Daniel Jones thing is probably, well, I don't think. I know that there was a sense of he's coming back. And that was quite, so this is an interesting, we're walking a fine line here, okay? Because when we're talking about the quarterback stuff in a lot of this situation, O'Connell is the man, okay? So he can't just be like, that wasn't me. That wasn't me. But when it comes to Jones, and Darnold, I'd love to know, but when it comes to Jones, there was a feeling that he's coming back. And that landed on Quasi's desk. Like O'Connell doesn't do contracts. He's not negotiating. He tells you, I want you back. But I mean, he was not the guy to say, okay, let's put pen to paper, and then there's conversations about, okay, am I going to get a chance? O'Connell's involved, but this was Quasi's baby. And for lack of a better term, he screwed the pooch. And then you know as well as I do that O'Connell had as much interest in bringing in Sam Howell as he did in being poisoned. Like he had no interest in Sam Howell. Yeah. And so then it's like, okay, well now you've got a backup to a quarterback who is still young. We didn't think he would struggle as much or get hurt as much, but now that's on Quasi's plate again. It wasn't, Kevin didn't sign off and say, Sam Howell's fine. And in fact, you could make, again, I'll go back to, and these are the things I was wondering if the Wilfs was firing, all right?
Yeah.
Let's go back to March. There's free agent QBs out there. The Niners get Mac Jones with Brock Purdy as their starter. So Mac Jones didn't say, oh, hold on a second, I got to compete with Brock Purdy. He said, okay, I'll take the contract. Well, the Vikings weren't playing that game at the time because they were trying to play the comp game. So there's just a lot of things. And then to your point, lastly, about Darnold, and I asked you this somewhat jokingly, but somewhat serious on, I think it was Monday's show, which is how much do you think it triggered the Wilfs to watch that on Sunday? And they didn't just watch Darnold going to the Super Bowl with his team. Yeah. They watched a game in which he led them there. So I think all of this probably built up. Again, personally, I would have done this the Monday after or Tuesday after. I'm not quite sure what they were waiting for. Like, did they think that they were going to sit down and meet and find out that, you've had great drafts. Sorry about this. But nonetheless, I think this is the right move.
So yeah, on the timing, I agree, by the way. I think you have to weigh what is the opportunity cost on both sides of this, and we'll get back to the timing of it because I have a question for you about that too. But if you were to keep Quasi, the opportunity cost is there might be some other candidates that are kind of hot candidates that could step in and be elevated, and you'd be missing out on those candidates for another hiring cycle. Another opportunity cost would be he butchers another draft, and you wind up with more empty cupboards with a bad cap situation. So really, and then on the flip side, all right, if you fire him now, well, what's the opportunity cost? What would you be risking? And I don't know that there's an answer. Like he's right. The best you can do is kind of defend a few things here and there that might have been bad luck, or, you know, they kind of flipped a coin on this decision and it came up tails and it's just like luck of the draw. But he doesn't have, other than like the Jonathan Grenard move and Van Ginkel, which were probably moves that were advised by Brian Flores and other people in the football ops department. I just don't know. I don't know that you're like, that there's a downside to this. I don't know that you're going to come back and rue the day that you let Quasi walk out your door based on, I think there's a chance, as much as we've criticized Kevin, I think there's a chance you could rue the day that Kevin O'Connell walked out your door, even as we poke at some of his play calling tendencies. I don't know if I feel that way about the 4-year track record of Quasi at this point.
I think your biggest concern, like if you could sit here and say, okay, you know, we've started our draft process, which you're supposed to technically like start May 1st of last year, right? Because it's just a process that accumulates. And if you were to say this is going to throw our draft process into shambles, and by the way, we had confidence, but you didn't. So like the one thing, and this is why I'm sort of surprised. I don't know what they needed to hear in those meetings. Like we were talking about this a month ago. I don't know if the Darnold thing drove them more crazy. You know as well as I do, because this happens in every building. The sport doesn't matter is, you know, the backstabbing got pretty bad because at this point in time, you're talking about Darnold walked away, Jones left, right? And until he tore his Achilles, you're watching Daniel Jones play really well. Yeah. And you're like, we could have had him still. And then you're watching Ty Felton as a gunner. He's your 3rd round pick. And Keenan McCardell might have pounded the table, but at the end of the day, he didn't have the authority to say we're drafting him. So, yeah, the only way that you would say this is a huge mistake is if you had a draft philosophy you believed in and you butchered it because you fired Quasi today, but you don't. And again, I think this is why I'm not saying Brzezinski is the long-term guy here, but I think this is why having a guy like Brzezinski whose main agenda is the team, like Grigson would be trying to impress you, and I don't trust him personally. I think this is why this move is probably sound, and I am now fascinated to see where it goes from here.
If you're just joining us, by the way, over 5,000 people here right now live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, less than an hour ago, dismissed, fired, if you will, by the Minnesota Vikings. And Rob Brzezinski, the longtime, I guess you could call him a capologist, head of Vikings player personnel accounting and other operations. He's just been a longtime respected stalwart in that organization. He is taking over, not Ryan Grigson. He is taking over the general guidance of the football operations until the Vikings look to hire a new general manager after the draft process. So that brings me to another question, the timing of this. I understand doing it before we get too close to the draft, because if you don't trust the process that's been in place for the draft lead up,
correct,
the 3 key months, Senior Bowl into Combine and Pro Days and that accumulation of information, etc., I get why you would want some fresh leadership for this stretch. But it is curious that their season ended almost a month ago, and while most teams were making pretty immediate moves on head coaches and coordinators and front office personnel, like personnel directors and general managers, like those moves usually happen within 1 or 2 weeks or even like 48 hours of the season being over. Why the lag here, do you think? What let's drill down. We've touched on it, but like what happened in the last like 3 or 4 weeks that would have been different than like 72 hours after the season? They haven't played a game since then, obviously.
Nope.
I mean, was it like, oh, they saw too many Darnold playoff wins and finally their blood started boiling?
Which shouldn't be why you're upset, right? Like that shouldn't drive you. So I'm glad that you asked that question. Diana Rossini, who I know a lot of you don't like, but she is a reporter who's got sources. She tweeted this within the last 5 minutes. She tweeted, Vikings ownership met multiple times following the season, holding extensive conversations with leaders, including Kevin O'Connell. They recently met again to finalize their moves, and after those discussions, decided to fire their GM despite his new contract last offseason. My honest guess is that this was a situation where there were dissenting voices about Quasi staying. And ultimately, it shouldn't have influenced them, but there were probably things that they saw in the playoffs, and there were probably things that they heard from people that swayed them. And look, I mean, this is not, despite the fact he got a contract extension, this is not a new thing. Like there have been questions about, I mean, Quasi was the right-hand man in Cleveland, which is a whole nother story too, because the Andrew Barry, who was his mentor, process of hiring a coach in Cleveland was beyond bleeped. And I gotta wonder if that like factored in. They're like, we hired you and you worked with Andrew Barry, and 3 really good coaching candidates dropped out because your process was so flawed in Cleveland. But there were enough flawed things here. I think there was also a feeling that Quasi was going to bring in a style, an analytical style of GM, an affable fellow, and they thought that that was going to work. And you know what, Phil? At the end of the day, especially in this sport, a lot of football people are football people. I mean, O'Connell's a grinder. That dude has a bed in his office. Like, he is a grinder. And Quasi's a guy who I think was trying to have a lifestyle mix. God bless him for that, right? But I just think there were a lot of things at the end of the day that didn't match up. Now, if you draft well for 4 years or so, guess what? Okay, I'm a different cat, but I draft well. But they didn't draft well. They drafted very poorly. Like, you look at what the Patriots have. The Patriots have guys contributing from this past draft on a Super Bowl team. So I think all of these things, and I'm sure O'Connell was a dissenting voice against Quasi, and I really don't blame him. But I think all of those things go into a stew of how we got to where we are today, even though it is a bit odd. I guess I'm really surprised they sent him to the Senior Bowl. Like, what's the purpose there? But okay.
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. I mean, ideally you would have made your decision on this before sending him to the Senior Bowl, I guess. But sending him to the Senior Bowl, because I don't think Thor told us he did not see Kevin O'Connell at the Senior Bowl, and
which
so
now is even more interesting. Yeah.
Is it possible that they sent him to the Senior Bowl and then some key people stayed back in Minnesota and then had some meetings and say, hey, now that we can, all right, let's have some clear the air conversations here. Is this something that we want to do? That's my guess, but I want to list a few of the factors.
That's a great point, by the way.
Like,
hey, Quasi, you go to Mobile. You got to go scout. We'll be meeting with Kevin O'Connell.
So yeah, who's coming with me? Kevin, what's your flight? You flying Delta? Wait, no, I'm actually staying back. Rob, are you going? You going to see Mobile? A little dinner? No.
Great point.
Let's put together kind of an impromptu pie chart here.
The Rock knows how you feel about pie.
Whether we put percentages on it or not is up to us from a math perspective. But what would you say in order are the 3 biggest slices of pie? 1, 2, 3. For why Quasi was fired today?
Well, 1, I think, is draft. Like, that's the elephant in every room of his tenure. So I'd say 1 is draft. I would say, in fairness, right now, 2 is probably, despite the fact he's not the sole person to blame, quarterback. Mm-hmm. Like, they had no backup plan. Like, Carson Wentz came in at the 11th hour. It was Quasi's job to plan a backup plan. Now, O'Connell certainly gave him a grocery list, which didn't get fulfilled, but he didn't fulfill it. That's a huge one. And, I mean, they were left, Phil, how many times with egg on their face throughout the season because they didn't have a plan or they didn't have a good plan. And 3, I would say it's a combination of what the Vikings didn't get what they expected. They expected that they were bringing in a very different from Rick Spielman type of GM, a non-traditional guy, a guy that was going to have collaboration but still have control. And I don't think they got that. So to me, 3 is a little bit more of a catch-all, but 1, I think is clearly draft. And 2, I think it's how miserably the quarterback situation was handled. And we talked about this at the time, too. You don't sign the free agent class that they signed and say, we are going to thread a needle here to then basically have it all fail. You just don't. And 5 wins, 5 consecutive wins, we can laud that, whatever. The reality is a team that was expected to win the division or at the very least be in the postseason tournament was 4-8.
tournament. The tournament. Our guy Dex
There he is.
tried to take a day off today, and the Twins, before noon on Friday, the Twins let go of Derek Falvey and the Vikings let go of Quasi.
I really want to say what the bleep. I really want to use it for like one of the rare times we don't use that word. We're a family-friendly podcast, but like seriously, what the heck today? Like this is a top 5 craziest days in Minnesota sports, right?
Dude, we 45 minutes ago, Judd and I did an episode of Flagrant Howls that was a roundup of the most credible NBA insiders in the entire NBA media sphere, actively pushing Giannis wants to play for the Timberwolves, and this is a very realistic thing that could happen. And it's like the 4th most consequential thing that we're doing across the Score North podcast today. It's crazy. It is like, have we ever seen with like the major teams on the same day, the heads of the operations departments get canned on the same day?
I will say this though. It's as if I left Santa a wish list on December the 24th and I woke up on the 25th and I got nothing. And I'm like, what the hell is this? And then Santa found it in his sled and it's like, oh, you wanted these things? No problem at all, Sports Dad.
Here it is. It's going to be delayed, but ho, 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 everyone's getting fired.
I mean, there are two
just
guys.
like Sports Dad wants.
There are 2 guys I thought should be fired, so.
So, by the way, I know, Dex, we'll do twin stuff, like follow-up twin stuff on the Score North Twin Show, but we have an emergency episode. I know you've been on some of for Falvey getting let go on the Twin side. You can check out the Score North Twin Show for that. Flagrant House for the Giannis stuff. Thor Talks Purple's going to have a reaction to this with Jason Harmon. But back to something so on the pie chart front here, you had listed draft as the number 1 reason, and maybe like the quarterback situation. I actually think the demise of the quarterback play and situation is the number 1 reason why he got fired, because I think. And we may never know the exact details of the contention behind the scenes, but we know that Kevin O'Connell was not on board with the quarterback plan that eventually became the plan in the summer. We know that Kevin O'Connell did not draw up in his office in January of 2025 into February. I want J.J. McCarthy to have essentially 0 competent competition in that room until we get to the week before the season, and then Carson Wentz is going to come in here. So, Kevin probably wasn't happy about that throughout the entire offseason and summer. His demeanor just seemed a lot more irritable throughout the last 12 months, and I'm sure that was a major point of contention behind the scenes. How did we get to this point where Sam Howell is the QB2 on this team after we had Darnold and Daniel Jones, and even Nick Mullins was at least he could run the system and throw for 300 yards when called upon, right? And then to see also Drake May, who I think the Vikings, with hiring Josh McCown a couple years ago, with the way that Kevin O'Connell kind of joked at that church live stream. Remember, somebody asked him about Drake May, and he said, yeah, I'm sending a bouquet of flowers to Robert Kraft, that little joke he cracked.
Yep.
They wanted Drake May. And I'm not saying there was ever a chance the Patriots would actually bend and, okay, finally you've offered enough first-round picks. But if you're in Kevin's shoes and you have an ego and you have wants and needs as an offensive-centric coach, and you're kind of pissed about the way this has played out, would there be some festering resentment in your soul that you're watching Drake May against Sam Darnold in the Super Bowl, and you're thinking to yourself, one guy was in our building and we just didn't keep him, and maybe some of that was Kevin's fault, and the other guy I wanted us to move up and give up the farm for, and our head of football operations couldn't do either of those things and couldn't keep Daniel Jones. I think if you get better quarterback play this season, you go to the playoffs. And if that happens, Quasi doesn't get fired today. So I would actually put the devolvement of the quarterback situation as the number 1 reason why he got canned today.
Very fair. I mean, it's definitely there. So yeah, to me, the drafting is an accumulation of ineptitude, but the quarterback thing, we said this after the season, or as it concluded, I think we all said, you don't have the expectations that they did, botch them this bad, and everybody just keeps their job. It didn't make any sense.
Midi7869 says, come on, Mackie, can it with the soap opera drama. My man, you think everything was?
do you think this
you think
is?
everything was aligned and perfect behind the scenes, and then the birds are chirping, and then everyone woke up this morning and decided that Quasi's going to get canned?
The butterflies were going through the air. No, this is a soap opera. It's the Vikings, for Christ's sakes. Of course, it's a soap opera.
We're trying to paint a picture of what probably happened behind the scenes. Sorry, Debs.
I'm playing catch up with you guys. I was driving home 25 minutes, so. And did I see like Diana Rossini also say like a lot of league sources say that this did not catch everyone by surprise?
Yeah.
Like that. I mean that's so this news even to the soap opera thing like that's crazy. I mean it's not crazy I guess in terms of if you talk to the league sources and you're all plugged in like Diana and Rap Sheet and everyone else is, but I mean the timing of both these things. Like I'm still processing the Twins change. And even Derek Falvey was asked about Kwesi's firing on the press conference. I was driving home listening to that, and Derek Falvey literally said, "Are you guys joking? Like, is someone pulling a fast one on me?" Because apparently he talked to Quasi this morning when said, "Hey, there's going to be news today that I'm fired." And apparently Quasi texted him back and said, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." And like he sent like a great like a encouraging text message to the point of now 2.5 hours later, 3 hours later. Now Quasi is out of a job, and Falvey was also shell-shocked by that. So honestly, that was the biggest thing I took away from the Falvey portion of the press conference was Derek Falvey thought Lavelli Neal was pulling a fast one on him when he said, Kwesi Adofo-Mensah also got fired. Are you aware of this?
Dude, they're texting each other too.
They're texting each other.
And they have I guess they have
crazy.
relationship back to like, because both of them were in Cleveland stops, right?
Yeah.
Because Quasi was with the Browns, Falvey was with the Guards. So, like, they've known each other prior to their tenures in Minnesota. So, yeah, man, it's just a crazy, crazy day.
This does, I will say this on the Wilfs front, though. They have shown throughout their time a willingness to fire people with term left on their contracts, too.
Yeah.
I mean, Childress had signed an extension, not surprisingly, during that great 2009 season through, I think it had a team option for 2012, and he was fired in 2010. Zimmer had some time left, correct? So I think Spielman did. But the point is, this is not, the Wilfs have shown a willingness to pay people to go away. So that's not a surprise. I would love to know if there was a final straw or if they really wanted to go through all of these meetings to come to the conclusion that we all sort of came to, a month ago.
Do you think, just because it was at T-Diggs, there's a couple people in here saying, there's a few people saying, bring back Slick Rick.
No, I don't. I'm good there.
Well, let me ask it from this perspective. Do you think the Vikings, like if given a choice 4 years ago, now retrospectively we can look back, you can blow out Rick like they did and bring in both Quasi and Kevin O'Connell, or you can keep Rick and hire Kevin O'Connell under Rick Spielman. I mean, that would have been a better option. I mean, there's a justification of this where like, okay, what's the third option? And that's what they're probably going to explore here in a few months. But
right,
Rick, your reaction there is kind of the reaction that most people have to Rick Spielman. But if you're Rick, you can look back and say, you know what, guys, bleep all of you guys. Look at my draft history. Rick Spielman, 2021 and going back, he wasn't perfect, and Trader Rick loved himself some 7-round picks. All right,
yep.
I get it. But that dude drafted Christian Darrisaw. He drafted Cam Bynum, Justin Jefferson. Ezra Cleveland was still a starter in the NFL. Blake Brandell, who's been an awesome swing guy who started 3 different positions this year. He drafted Josh Metellus. He drafted Garrett Bradbury, who wasn't the Pro Bowler, but guess what? Garrett Bradbury is a starting Super Bowl center for the New England Patriots. I could keep going. I mean, Brian O'Neill in 2018, Dalvin Cook in 2017. And there's a bunch of whiffs in the middle rounds here, but in terms of just kind of nailing a bunch of first-round picks and second-round picks, Rick Spielman was a lot better at that than Kwesi Adofo-Mensah was.
Yeah, I just he wouldn't be my choice. What I would like, and I'm going to guess this played a role as well in watching the playoffs, what I would like is, because there's a happy medium between old school stogie smoking Rick Spielman and Quasi, and this is what I would like. If you watch the Super Bowl finalists, who run personnel-wise, who runs those teams? John Schneider, who is now in his 40s, I think, but was a very young executive with the Packers under Ted Thompson, got hired to run the Seahawks, has been there quite some time now and has done a great job. Elliot Wolf, who, if I'm not mistaken, was in the building to interview for the Vikings job, Ron Wolf's son, before Quazi got the job and was eventually hired to head up the New England Patriots personnel. I think you can go younger with a football person and have success, and that's what I would like. But I'll go back to what I said at the top of the show. I also think Kevin O'Connell's going to have a huge say here.
Yeah,
I think Kevin O'Connell. I think what the Wilfs have done, right or wrong, and I don't mind it. I think what they are doing is they are putting all their eggs in one basket. The weird thing about the Wilfs is, because football runs counter to this, the weird thing about the Wilfs is I don't think they like conflict, but they own a team in a sport where conflict is king. So I think they're trying to get it to be so everyone's on the same page as much as possible.
Yeah,
but it's a sport where that's damn near impossible. Football is probably the biggest conflict sport.
And that's where you need like clear pecking orders in a lot of cases. Like you need that alignment. The alignment needs to be 4 people. And from there, it's kind of authoritarian in football. Owner, GM, coach, head coach. And then the 4th thing would be quarterback, because you have to have a plan at quarterback. And sometimes the structure of it is that like the head coach and the general manager are on equal levels, and maybe, but like the Ravens, John Harbaugh reported to ownership and kind of worked with front office. But it has always felt a lot like Kwesi was there. Kwesi was giving a lot of power, because he doesn't have the football scouting background that others do. A lot of power to the coaches, and everyone has a voice. And then it's like, so then how does Ty Felton wind up being your 3rd round pick? And he's a gunner all season in a year which you have a bottom 5 offense in a bunch of different categories, right? So, by the way, more reporting is coming out here from various NFL insiders. And if you are, there's over 7,000 people right now hanging out with us live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. We're going to give you, let's reset here, and we'll give you some of the latest reporting on Quasi being fired this morning. Judd, a shout out to MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air real quick.
Yes. You know what, folks? There is uncertainty with the Twins. There is uncertainty with the Vikings. But I'm going to tell you how you can have certainty with your furnace and your HVAC system, and that is by getting my friends at MSP to make sure that your furnace is going at peak efficiency. If you live in this godforsaken state, then you know that the past week plus has been miserable. You know what? The last thing that you need is a furnace that is not working at optimal condition, and that is why MSP are the people that you want to get in touch with to make sure that it is working just great. 651-615-4292, or check out their website, callmsp.com. Callmsp.com. MSP Plumbing, Heating, and Air.
Let's see here. Ian Rappaport just said on NFL Network, Sam Darnold being in the Super Bowl has not exactly sat well with the people of Minnesota. I don't know if he's just like generally saying like all of us who watch football, or if he means that it specifically was the final piece to the puzzle for Quasi losing his job. But it is embarrassing. It's definitely like there is a chance that JJ McCarthy still kind of becomes a guy and figures it out. But right now, in this current moment for the Vikings and for Vikings fans, it's embarrassing.
Let me ask you this. If the Seahawks are in the Super Bowl right now, getting set to play the Patriots, but JJ McCarthy had a good year. It doesn't have to be outstanding. He had a good year. And the Vikings had been bounced from the playoffs in the first round. Do you think that if we do put all our eggs in the quarterback situation, got him fired, do you think he's fired?
No. I go no. In terms of if you're and you're under the impression too that JJ played well, right?
Yeah, he played well. He didn't get hurt. He played well.
Yeah. No. Okay. No. I don't think they fire Quasi. No. Personally.
Boy, getting to the playoffs with a first-year starting quarterback, my guess is he probably sticks around through the draft process, and then they kind of evaluate and see. That's That's the other thing, though, too. It's hard to just like, all right, you can draft, but we'll see how you do in the draft. You don't really know how a draft is going to pan out until a long time later. But yeah, I think missing the playoffs and having largely bottom 5 quarterback play was the final. But then why did it take 3 or 4 extra weeks? There's probably some gaps to be filled in there.
Yep. And it might not be fair, but in some ways, as crazy as this sounds, the 5-game win streak didn't help Quazi a bit because it showed you at the end of the season how close you were to being in the playoffs if you had just gotten marginal QB play.
Yeah.
So it's like 4-8 really hurt him. But then it's like, okay, we won 5 consecutive games. And then the Wilfs say, yeah, and we almost made the playoffs. If you guys hadn't screwed the pooch, we'd be in the playoffs. And that, of course, we know this. That's what the Wilfs want. They want to be in that tournament. They want to win a Super Bowl, but their thing is we have to win a Super Bowl, you have to be in the tournament. And once you get in the playoffs, anything can happen. So I think 4-8 hurt Quazi for sure, but I think popping up and winning 5 games and showing you how close they were to being a playoff team with quarterback play that bad hurt him as well.
They they are a ownership, and Judd can probably speak on it more from covering them more extensively. But like even when I used to go in the locker room and stuff, they're an emotional group. They don't like being embarrassed. I remember like maybe the most like vivid Wilf memory I have like burned in my brain is when that infamous, and Boone and Sirles I think were on this team, that 2016 Colts loss at home after at that point like they were probably going to miss the playoffs, but they got embarrassed by Andrew Luck, but like a really bad Colts team. And I remember Ziggy Wilf walking out with like literally his head just sunk into his gut basically, and it was Sid Hartman that said, "Hey, keep your head up." But I remember just thinking like, man, these guys, in terms of the Wilfs, and I was like a very young, impressionable, like a year out of college, like these guys do not like this feeling. Like it's different than if the Pohlads were in that group, previous iterations of the Pohlad, they would not have that sunken feeling of, man, we just got embarrassed and we let our 5-0 season go down the drain. They're a different group for sure.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So man, this is pretty wild, man. This is about the biggest Vikings news really since, well, when they drafted McCarthy, that's right up there. But it's the biggest Vikings news since they fired Rick Spielman and Mike Zimmer back 4 years ago. So I wonder, Judd, didn't you send us, by the way, a few weeks ago? You sent us a list of like hot general manager candidates, and I'm wondering how many of these are still. I'm going to pull this open here.
Was Cunningham on the? Was it who was the Bears assistant guy?
Yeah, he just got a job with the Falcons.
Yep.
So I don't recall if he was on it, but I did
Derek
find a
Falvey?
list about 3 weeks ago. Derek Falvey, what a day. But I'm looking for a guy who's on the rise. Doesn't have to be an old codger type of guy, but is more of a football guy. Because at the end, I don't know you can reinvent the wheel on football. I think in baseball you can tweak the wheel a lot more.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it perfect, but I feel like you can fool with the wheel. I feel like in football, you can get people in your building that aren't traditional. I don't know you can put them in charge.
Okay, I just want the audience to know the foresight that the sports dad has here. Okay,
Thank you.
Just digging through my inbox, and you emailed us on Thursday, December 4th. What game had they just played? What was the reason for you sending this on Thursday? I mean, they were.
I don't even remember.
Let's see here. So they played the. Okay, they had. They had just gone into Seattle a few days beforehand and got waxed 26-0, and that was another factor here: the pumping of the tires of Max Brosmer.
Oh, that's a good one. Yes,
he's our little secret.
Just felt
Quazi. We didn't want him to go to the combine. He was our little secret.
So was Kwesi quoted as he said that, right?
He said that. He was on the record. That was in the story that he was our little secret.
Yeah, which leads you to believe he was the pump. He was the pumper of tires.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. And so you emailed us a few days after that Seattle debacle, and the title of the email was "Just for Reference" at this point, and it was a link to this Athletic article by Jordan Rodriguez, and it's hot general manager candidates. Basically, keep an eye on these NFL GM candidates. I think she might cover the Dolphins, like for the Dolphins and beyond. I don't know if some of these have been hired already, but like Ed Dodds, the assistant GM for the Indianapolis Colts, is on this list. Josh Williams, director of scouting and football ops for the 49ers. Ian Cunningham, who we talked about from the Bears, he got plucked already.
Yep.
So that is the other thing about the timing is how many names on a list like this or others. John Eric Sullivan is the one that got hired by the Dolphins, right, from the Packers?
Yes.
And they went full Packers regime. But how many of these names did you miss out on because you kind of played with your food for 3 or 4 weeks?
Which is my question of why were you playing with your food? Like did somebody have to? How many times don't you? The Wilfs go to games. They talk to people way more than we do. How were you not aware that this was not working? What made you do it right now? Because to me, if it was just an accumulation of sit downs, then I'm with you, which is you just let a list of people go because you didn't do what you were going to do, which is incredibly frustrating. The other thing, too, is I actually go back to this because at the time that they hired Quazi, one of their candidates, and Vikings fans laughed and laughed and laughed, was Ryan Poles. Well, Bears got off to a Bears stripped her down. The Vikings don't like to do that. And Ryan Poles, we laughed at Ryan Poles. Oh, look at that guy. You know, we're going to take the North. Yeah, you're going to be in last place every season. He got his first head coaching hire wrong. They moved on fairly quickly. They now have what looks like a very good quarterback. They now have what looks like a very good coach. I'm not saying that they're perfect, but the actual rumblings behind the scenes at the time were, one is the Vikings obviously did not want to strip it down. The other was price point. Because I think the Bears paid Poles pretty damn well. And I think the Vikings were like, we don't know about that. But the point is, this time around, guys, and look, you have not been accused of being cheap, but this time around, if it comes to price point, pay the freaking price.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, pay the price. I mean, Ryan Poles, right now, if we could go back in time, I think you'd take it. Like whatever he's done. He might be an awkward dude, but he's done a good job.
Yeah, and some of it also is like circumstance and luck and okay, like did they hunt for the number 1 overall pick? No, because didn't they get the number 1 pick because Carolina was terrible? But they made a savvy trade. They kind of stalked a team that they thought might be over its skis and bad, and they got their first round pick, and so there was definitely some calculation there. A couple things here from ESPN that Declan just sent us from Twitter, but do we want to turn on-air production meeting? Do we want to turn this into a mini vent line too? Just get some fans' thoughts on this?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Vikings vent line at gmail.com. If any of you guys want to jump in, we can bring in a few listeners, viewers here if you want to be part of the show and give your thoughts on the firing of Quasi, the direction of this franchise. Then hit us up. Send a request to vikingsventline at gmail.com. And we'll get to a few people as we go through here. I know Thor is recording a Thor Talks Purple, and that'll be posted this afternoon. He may even jump in at the end of this here today. But Adam Schefter was on with McAfee, and he said it's an unusual time to fire a general manager, especially when he had been at the Senior Bowl all week. People in the league all year talked about the tension that existed in the Vikings organization. We talked about that.
Yep.
And then, Kevin Seifert adds, as Adam mentions here, there have been rumors for a while about a power struggle between coaches and the Vikings front office, but to the best that I've ever been able to find out, that tension never led to any changes in decision-making authority before today.
So I'm going to throw out something that I cannot confirm that I've heard, okay? But it's beginning to make more sense now. I heard through the rumor mill that when the Vikings were trying to keep Brian Flores, who was a free agent, so he could have left for a lateral move, that the Vikings were talking about in the draft, and keep in mind, Flores and O'Connell had say, so this is not like huge transition, but that they were open to giving O'Connell and Flores basically personnel say on the draft, which I don't think they had final say previously. I think it was an accumulation of a lot of voices. But, Flores was, first of all, Flores has been brought back. We don't know the specifics, but at an enormous coordinator salary. Like, they are paying Brian Flores. It would probably be considered sort of cheap for a head coach, but it's up there. The other thing is, it would make sense to say, you know what, dude, you've been you know who you want. You've been giving us suggestions for 2 years now. A lot of them worked out. We'll give you more final say. And I don't think O'Connell wants final say on defensive draft picks. Yeah. So I think what we've got here, if I see this right, in April when we're at the draft party, I think what we have here is a basketball potential setup. Brzezinski's the point guard. O'Connell is going to go in on the offense. Flores more so the defense. The only question is who gets final say on who goes where drafting process wise. But it does make more sense now that if Brian was told, and there is a chance, I don't think this is the case, but it could be. There's a chance that now that all of this is done, that the Wilfs went into Quazi and said, okay, here's what we're doing. And he's like, that's too far. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, you're right. You fired.
Yeah.
Total reckless speculation.
Since we're speculating recklessly here.
Reckless speculation.
Got a text from a buddy of mine, my buddy Brian. I want to bring this to the show. This is great.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the timing of this is kind of weird. Why would you shake up everything a few weeks into your draft process and the Senior Bowl? And wouldn't it be better to just kind of wait? Or why would you wait till after the draft to hire a new GM? Why not get that guy in as soon as possible so he can hit the ground running, maybe starting at the Senior Bowl and go from there, right?
Correct.
Doesn't this potentially upset your ability to nail the early rounds, the first round of the draft?
Reckless speculation.
Not if they intend on trading their first round pick. As my buddy Brian texted me, you know why the Vikings don't care about the draft, right? And then I saw his Twitter follow-up here. Because they're already planning on trading that first round pick and some other draft capital to the central part of the United States in the state of Ohio, maybe near the Cincinnati area.
Oh, you're going back to that well. Interesting.
For Joe Burrow.
Reckless speculation.
Interesting. I thought you were going to say, as now it's the long play, which is anti-Wilfs. I thought your buddy Brian was going to insinuate that they might be willing to move around 2026 draft capital for 2027 draft capital because of the depth of the quarterback class. The Burrow thing's much more fun.
Yeah, I mean, they could definitely be planning on, but you wouldn't know going in. You wouldn't be planning to. We're for sure trading back for 2027 capital. But you could be enough down the road to where.
Well, that's a good one though, because here's the thing with Quasi. We know, and guilty as charged for our show, we know that he was fully on board with trying to get a rookie quarterback scale contract and not have a quarterback be expensive. And by the way, we've gone through the permeations of why that's not a terrible move. But if you were going to get a quarterback who was going to break the bank and he's like, this isn't really what I wanted to do, you'd be like, oh, okay, dude, here's the door.
Yeah. Just a little reckless speculation here.
Reckless speculation.
All right, let's go to the vent lines here. Leighton, are you ready? Can we go to Leighton first here? Leighton from the Before I Die spin-off Purple Daily podcast. You can see him on Thor Talks Purple. Strictly Leighton across YouTube and social media. Dude, Kwesi out. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. Not surprised that it happened. More surprised of the timing. And I even think they got the timing on a Friday wrong, because usually when Friday news drops, it's 5 to 6 p.m. where all the shows are done.
Thank God they didn't do that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's usually the Friday news drops are when all the shows are done. Nobody can touch it till Monday. But I think the biggest thing is that the JJ McCarthy, nobody's tied to him anymore. If that was a Kwesi guy and Kevin O'Connell, he might have been on board with the young guy, with the young quarterback in the first place, but he's not tied to him anymore. And, with the smoke signals of Aaron Rodgers and him willing to play on a small deal, I think Quesi was just so locked into, I have to make this work, because if I'm letting a 14-win quarterback walk out of the building for JJ McCarthy, it has to work. And if I just bring in another guy, that's just a sign of I'm not confident that he can do it. So I feel like in the back of Quesi's mind, he had a feeling that JJ McCarthy was going to not be able to make it happen right away. But at the same time, he couldn't go out and get someone like an Aaron Rodgers to come in and make it happen, because he was just so tied up with having JJ McCarthy be that guy. But now I just think this frees up everything to give KOC the keys and whoever he wants running this offense. And the fact that nobody's tied to JJ McCarthy makes it just seamless transition to move on from him if they were to go that direction.
It does make it, it makes it super interesting, because we're about to find out. So, I mean, like, to your point, Quasi is no longer tied to anything because he gone. And we're about to find out how tied to JJ McCarthy Kevin wants to be, because, and I'm kind of like reiterating your point here, Leighton, which is a good one. No matter how tied to JJ McCarthy Kevin O'Connell was until today, this is an off-ramp. And it doesn't mean that you're like completely out on McCarthy, but this is kind of an off-ramp to say, hey, listen, like this would not have been if we're talking candidly here, Mark and Ziggy, this would not have been my preferred path last year. It was kind of Quasi who screwed this up. And so you can create some separation here. And what does he do with that in the next couple months, making quarterback moves? If through this McCarthy is the unquestioned number one starter, it shows you, oh, okay, well, I guess Kevin, there's a bunch of other reasons maybe why Quasi has been let go, and Kevin really does love JJ, but this is an opening to go get a different quarterback for sure.
And then I look back at the end of the year press conference, and I'm kind of assuming here, but it seemed like behind the scenes that Quesi almost got dominated by KOC saying, we're going to run the offense we had been running when we won 13 games, when we won 14 games, because, you know, they kind of mentioned that the last 5 games they kind of found something with JJ McCarthy, but they made it seem like that wasn't the direction they wanted to move in. And it almost seemed like Quesi kind of got stepped on a little bit with Kevin O'Connell saying, we're not going to be running that offense with JJ McCarthy the way we did it towards the end of the year. And we need to figure out how to run my system and my scheme that has, I guess, worked. I mean, they've won 13 and 14 games, whether that's the winning recipe for winning late in the season, who knows, but he has had success with it.
Yeah.
I do like the fact that this puts all of the pressure now essentially on O'Connell, though, because I'm not sure that statement, like if that's really what you're going to go back and do, then either you're going to retool McCarthy to a degree that I don't think is possible, or you're going to switch to a different QB. But because I didn't like that statement, because Kevin is so hard-headed, and it's like, dude, did you not see what happened here? All of that being said, yeah, I think it was a season full of disagreements. They didn't see eye to eye on a ton of things. But now, I mean, there's no question now. Kevin is on the hot seat, because if things go wrong now, the finger pointing is done. It's going to come back on Kevin O'Connell.
And I'm very interested to see what the draft looks like, because if, again, you guys mentioned that Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores had some, involvement in the draft, but in the end, they don't have the final say, to where now that they're not hiring a GM till after that process, what does that look like with those two guys? And if I'm the Wilfs, I'm putting most of my eggs in those two guys' basket to be like, yo, let's make it happen, because I think they know exactly what they want, and hopefully they're able to make it happen, because this is a very, very important draft coming up in April.
Yeah, Leighton, good stuff, dude. We'll see you. We'll see you on various podcasts and Purple Daily Instagram and TikTok too. He's omnipresent with Vikings and football takes. You can follow him, Strictly Leighton, too, on social. So good stuff, sure. Leighton.
Appreciate it, guys.
Let's 7,400 people here with this breaking Vikings news. We're an hour into this live stream. Quasi was let go by the Vikings like an hour and a half ago, on a day that the Twins also parted ways with their head of baseball operations, Derek Falvey. So go check out that emergency Twin Show episode. There's Giannis rumors all over. We covered that on Flagrant Howls. If you are new to Purple Daily, you're just kind of stumbling in here looking to find out what happened. welcome in. You are now part of what we think is the best Vikings fan community on the internet. Click that subscribe button and the like button on the Purple Daily YouTube channel, and we appreciate you joining us here. So, Dex, who's next on this impromptu vent line?
Yeah, let's go to Ryan. Ryan, what's going on, man? You're on vent line.
Guys, I just wanted to say that I ran into an entire family dressed out in Michigan gear probably a few months ago now, maybe a little before that, and I said, do we still believe in JJ? And it was almost a cult. They all smiled and were like, yes, he's just such a good guy. And I'm hoping that maybe with this firing we can maybe pull our heads out of the sand and kind of see things a little bit more clearly, and less of like, well, I picked this guy, maybe we need to stick with him, instead of we can be like, make a rational decision for this football team, because God, it feels like we scratch at the door so much and we're never let in, and it just sucks. I'm in Denver, man. And it's hard to be a Minnesota fan out here sometimes.
Hey, what? So you're in Denver. So I saw some people in the chat. So George Payton's been their GM in Denver, and he was the Vikings assistant GM for some really good years. Did I see someone in the chat say that his contract is up? I'm putting you on the spot.
I saw that.
That I don't know. That
Okay.
I could go back into the office and ask the freaks.
Go do
of
some
the
investigative
Broncos fans
reporting
in
on
there.
that. Actually, yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate you checking.
Thanks,
in
guys.
From, sunny Denver there. I would if you're him. I don't know. Denver's got a great thing cooking right now with being on the doorstep of the Super Bowl. But all right, who's next on vent line? Quasi out.
Let's go to Andrew next year. Andrew, what's up, man? You're on Vikings
Hey.
vent line.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, what's up, Andrew?
All right, so I just have a couple things. One, my fiance, who doesn't know football, knew that it was a mistake to get rid of Sam Darnold. And so when they made it to the Super Bowl, she bought a Sam Darnold jersey and was wearing it yesterday when it came in. So that was kind of funny.
You know what, though? I will say, like, she wasn't, if she got the jersey's a hedge. Like, the jersey would have been a full commitment. She wasn't 100% sure.
Well, and she bought the Justin Jefferson jersey last year, so more in on the Vikings. But then I also want to ask you guys a quick question. Do you guys think that the Brian Flores rehire has anything to do with the Kwesi firing?
Ooh, Andrew, thank you. That's a really interesting question.
As I said, I think it could have a little bit to do with Flores was going to get more draft control, final say on defensive draft picks. But I would put that way down the list. Like, I don't think that was the breaking point. I think the breaking point was the drafting, as Phil talked about, the quarterbacks. Do I think the Vikings had a lot of people internally who wanted to go in a different direction from what Quasi was doing? Yes, I do. Do I think that like the Flores thing in particular was the final thing? No. I think all of these things played a role, and some of them were more substantial. But you know, Quasi was charged with basically getting a consensus on draft picks. He did a lousy job. And so if Brian Flores having more say on defensive draft picks at the end of the day probably would have helped him somewhat.
Yeah. Yeah, the Flores thing. There was definitely some internal conflict over whether Brian Flores would be back. I don't know where Quasi stood on that. So it's hard to answer, but it is another layer to this. Like,
that's
okay,
true. Yeah.
It was kind of a domino that was in question, and it fell one way, and then the Quasi domino fell, and I don't know if they were mutually exclusive or not. But let's go back to the vent lines here, Dex.
Yeah, let's go to Don. Don, what's up, man? You're on Vikings vent line.
How we doing?
We're processing, Don.
Yeah.
We're processing.
It's a heck of a day for Minnesota sports, I'll tell you that. Mm-hmm. No, I think this is exactly what needed to happen. There needed to be a shakeup in the building. Kevin's frustration was palpable all year. I mean, you could hear it in his voice at press conferences, but yeah, I think this is the right move.
Yeah. Yeah, Don, thanks for checking in here. It does feel like the right move. It doesn't, and like I said earlier, I know it doesn't feel like the wrong move. It doesn't feel like there's a huge risk in, like, if I could bring our Timberwolves friends in here for a second, like the Giannis trade stuff. Should they trade for Giannis? There's an inherent risk of trading away 25-year-old Jaden McDaniels and maybe Yohan Beranger if they have, like, there's a risk in making that move with the goal of, okay, you made that move, but you're bringing Giannis here. I don't know that there's a downside here. Like you're certainly not going to find a general manager who has like a much worse draft track record the last few years, right? And you're certainly not going to find a worse quarterback situation than like what you saw with Brosmer on the field and some of the McCarthy starts. So, and the tension behind the scenes, like it felt like a kind of a no-brainer, quite frankly, when you boil all the reporting down.
I think the only thing to criticize or question is why they didn't do it sooner.
Like, how soon would you deem
I would have
appropriate?
done it. I would have done it the Monday or Tuesday after the season. Okay. Like I didn't see an upside. Why allow him to why allow him to extend into a very important time a process at which he hadn't done well? If there was this tension, let's break it up. Like if it was, there's a difference between having creative tension that actually helps and just friction. And this was more friction. And if you knew that O'Connell was your guy, why allow this to continue? So I would have honestly, when the season came to an end, I would have probably given it Monday and fired him on Tuesday. Yeah. And at least then he's not at the senior. Like, I just don't understand what was he doing here? He clearly didn't do something between now and then that got him fired, I don't think. So I would have fired him on that Tuesday. But to your greater point of like, was there something he did so well that you're going to miss it? The answer is no.
Back to the vent lines, Dex. Who do we got next year?
Yeah, let's go to Henry. Henry, what's up, man? You're on vent line.
What's going on, guys? Yeah, I think I really wanted to like Quazi. I think he has a decent personality, and I think that's why he did well in free agency. But you just can't excuse the draft misses. I think he tried to big brain stuff a little bit too much, probably a little too smart for his own good. The one thing I'm interested in is, so I live in Cincinnati, and I'm curious what
you do.
I do.
Oh.
And
can you get Joe in your car? Yeah.
Well, so two things. One, I think Bengals fans would rather have Ohio invade Minnesota than give us Joe Burrow. But then the other side of it is their front office is so inept they still might do it. I would want to know what Rob Brzezinski's relationship is with Duke Tobin. They're both people that have been with their teams for over 20 years. I wonder if they know each other just, through league circles. I'd be curious if giving Brzezinski power over the next few months has anything to do with anything like that. So,
yeah, Henry on the ground in Cincinnati. Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing: you take a potato bag, you go find Joe, you put him in the bag, in the trunk.
Sack.
Make sure that there's holes in the trunk so he can breathe, because we do not want to kill him.
And in the burlap bag.
And in the burlap bag, and then drive him here.
I don't know. You might he's such a weird guy. He's like, hey, Joe, do you want to get in this car and just go to Minnesota? And I feel like he'd be like, okay. Like, I don't think you have to kidnap him. I really don't think you have to kidnap him.
Even better, Dex.
Leave
today.
We did get, since we're all, speculating among friends here, the Purple Daily Anonymous tip line has been very giving this week. And again, the Purple Daily Anonymous tip line is for entertainment purposes only. It does not bat 1,000, but it does not bat 0, as we say.
Yep.
And I'll read you this one just for fun.
Okay.
Please keep me anonymous. This is all alleged, is the header on this email. So this is alleged. It's just alleged for entertainment purposes. Anonymous emails the show. I have a close relationship with a professional athlete who knows Joe Burrow quite well.
Oh.
I will not say. There's some more details in here that I am kind of couching to protect the anonymous emailer. They hung out, the professional athlete and Burrow. They hung out not too long ago. And my connection joked that Joe should get traded to a team that he could make a Super Bowl run with. Huh, Joe? What do you say? We take a trade? Joe smiled back and said, we'll see. In a way, according to my connection, that shows someone is not entirely telling the truth. Like, oh, we'll see, huh? When my connection pressed him on it, Joe said, I've always wanted to play with Justin Jefferson. We know how close Jefferson and Burrow were at LSU. And another teammate from that team, Jay Ward, is also on the Vikings.
Wow.
The Vikings would never trade Jefferson unless he wanted out. But what about a Joe Burrow trade to the Vikings? I know it's been speculated already. And then kind of goes on to explain how many picks it would take. But that's just an anonymous emailer. A connection of Joe Burrow. Little joking around about maybe playing for the Minnesota Vikings.
And don't forget, Joe, as a young man, the picture at that party with a 84 Randy Moss Vikings jersey on. Now he's playing with Jefferson. It'll never happen, though. It'll never. It can't ever happen.
Okay, back to the vent lines here as we process
I always love that one.
the Vikings firing Kwesi Adofo-Mensah earlier today.
Yeah, let's go to Derek next year. Hey, Derek, what's going on? Great stash. What's up, buddy?
Hey, you too. Can you hear me good?
Yes.
Yeah, we got you.
Awesome. All right, so I can't remember exactly which game of the season it was. Minnesota versus Rams during the regular season. Do you guys remember what week that was?
Like last year?
Last year?
It was
Late October last year.
Yeah.
well, there we-
Okay.
That's the game Darius
so, yeah,
got hurt in.
that was the game where Carson Wentz pretty much had the shoulder injury.
Chargers.
Oh, you think it's
Oh,
Chargers?
the Chargers?
At
All right,
SoFi.
Chargers.
Yeah.
All right, so you guys also mentioned too about how the Wilfs, they don't like to be embarrassed and whatnot. And I think that game itself was a prime example of where they got their mindset straight of like, we need to fire Quasi, because that was a turning point in the season, in my opinion, where at least the Wilfs were able to see, oh, these guys clearly isn't Quasi screwed up, because you had Wentz that was clearly hurt and in, severe pain multiple times. And it was embarrassment on national television because our whole family was watching, and, they're like, put in Brosmer, put in, whoever. And they didn't want to put in Brosmer because clearly he wasn't ready. And I think JJ McCarthy, he was listed questionable with an ankle injury, I'm pretty sure. Is that right? Ankle injury?
Yeah.
He still was dealing with the
he was
ankle.
out.
Yeah.
Yep.
So they didn't want to put in JJ McCarthy because he was, questioned with the ankle injury, but it could have also been a protective blanket on JJ McCarthy by also, oh, he's just not ready. But they weren't going to say that to the public. So at that point, it was clear as day to the public that they don't have a plan whatsoever. And whatever plan they did have totally got debunked. And now you're putting a player's health at risk and his career probably. And how can you get not more embarrassed than that? That's my biggest point, I would say. And I think
Derek,
at that point, the Wolves probably had their mindset made up at that point in the season.
Yeah, thanks for jumping in here. I mean, the Brosmer thing, and I'm not trying to pick on Brosmer, and maybe he winds up becoming a viable backup or something going forward. But like that dude was, if you ranked all of the games you've seen in the NFL and the least ready quarterbacks to perform their job, that is very high up on the list. The games that he went out there, and some of that's on the coaching staff. And hey, listen, he's on the team, and it was decided he was going to be within striking distance of playing. But also, like, Quasi owns the 53-man roster decisions too. So how did they get to a point where that dude the tires were being pumped and he looked that bad in the 2 or 3 games he played? It's just a black mark.
Much like the handoff from Howell, who got traded to Philly at the end of training camp, to Wentz, who had to play, and then he got hurt, to Brosmer, the entire backup QB situation was bungled. Now, I disagree, though, that, I think that game played a role. But again, if that was, the game that got him fired, you pull the plug right after the regular season. Then you just don't wait. So, yes, I think that played a role. Yes, that was embarrassing. And yes, the backup quarterback situation was screwed up 6 ways to Sunday. But I don't think we're sitting here in late January talking about this if, that was the game where they said he's gone.
Yep. Let's get our guy Thor Nystrom in here, Dex. He just got done recording a Thor Talks Purple episode, and you'll be able to consume that this afternoon, reacting to the news. But Thor, welcome in. We've been live for over an hour here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. There's 7,000 people hanging out with us, all trying to process the Vikings firing Kwesi Adofo-Mensah. So Just your high level thoughts, man. You saw him at the Senior Bowl down there, kind of poking his head around, watching some of the practices this week.
This is bizarre. The timing of this is just so bizarre, and I'm sure you guys have talked about that over the last hour. But the fact that you have him go to the end of season press conference, which was already weird, in that he didn't speak with Kevin O'Connell. You had the separation there. Then you send Quasi to the Senior Bowl this past week. And like you mentioned, we were down there. One of my buddies was on a plane with Quasi flying out of MSP to New Orleans on Monday. We see him out there on the field for a couple of days, and then you fire him while the Senior Bowl week is still going. The day in between the last practice of the Senior Bowl and then the Senior Bowl game is where you decide to do this. And it appears that the people making the decision, it was those left back in the building. It's like Quasi's out of here, so let's talk about his future. The timing of it is just so odd. And you see the statement from the team that Rob Brzezinski is going to be running things through the draft. I find that very weird too. So you've made this sort of knee-jerk decision that doesn't, this unorthodox timeline, where it's not right after the season, does not seem to be following a usual kind of review process where you would have had a new GM for the postseason presser. With how long they put that thing off, you had time to go through a GM search and potentially present your new one. The Vikings believed that Quasi on that day was going to be the GM, and I imagine when they sent him on a flight that the team had paid for, that they expected him to be the GM earlier this week when he gets down to the Senior Bowl. So what happened here over the last 3 days? Those discussions in the building, and what did the people that wanted Quasi out, what is the thing that they didn't think they were going to be able to get him on their side for? Right? What was the right? If the ownership wanted him out after a review process, you would have thought that would have happened before. So this seems like a push. There was in the thing, it was like, there's, the front office and the coaching staff's not on the same page. It's probably a pretty big hint of where that came from. But now it seems to set up a thing where Kevin O'Connell is going to get an enormous amount of personnel say this off season, heading into a season where he could be on the hot seat. And you wonder about that, allowing a guy potentially to play around with future assets in an attempt to save his job for this coming year reminds you a little bit. We see this every year in the NFL, but last process, that was my boy, terrible Terry Fontenot, trading a first-round pick this year so that he could move into the back end of the first last year and give up a second-round pick as well in that transaction. That's the kind of stuff that desperation is a stinky cologne, and I'm concerned about giving people on a hot seat too much power in personnel decisions going into a one-off year.
But didn't you also remain concerned about Quasi drafting again? Because we've talked about that. Like I agree with you. The timing is weird, but I don't think that they fired a guy who really knew what he was doing when it came to some very important things. And I think we talked about this towards the season's end. There was no way you were going to be as disappointing as this team was, and everyone was, for the most part, was going to walk away scot-free. So I agree with you on the timing, but I don't feel like this is some terrible move because, my God, Quasi was going to make all of these great draft picks, or I trusted him.
No, for sure.
So I'm not that conflicted. I would have fired him, like, for instance, as I said before, the Tuesday after the season ended. I wonder why it took this long. But, as we talked about before you joined us, Thor, there's a chance that the Senior Bowl gave a lot of people, because you didn't see O'Connell, an opportunity to have some final weigh-in on Quasi's future while he was nowhere near the building.
Yeah, I think that's what it appears to be here. And to the point that you're making, I get it. I'm not going to argue for Quasi's draft history. It's been bad. It's been really bad. But so what they're presenting now is we're getting Quasi out, but then, it's just Rob's going to take over. We'll get it through the draft. What they're presenting to you is it's all the same guys that are going to be in that building making, in that room, the war room, making that decision outside of Quasi. And they want us to believe, we fixed the problem. But Quasi's not he's not the dude who's scouting all these guys and picking them individually. The issues with the draft process has been the advice he's been getting from the guys you still have in the building. All you're doing is replacing the guy who is taking the votes in the room. That goes from being Quasi now to Rob Brzezinski. And that's what's supposed to fix the draft process this coming in April. I doubt that. If you didn't like the way things were going, and certainly, again, I'm not going to argue that they were going super well, why don't you hire your experienced evaluator for this draft process, right? And also try to identify the guys that were giving bad advice to Quasi in the draft room, either to get them out of the building themselves or to minimize their influence on draft picks. Keenan McCardle.
I mean, that is a fair argument that if a big reason why he's, I think the two biggest reasons, we did kind of an impromptu pie chart earlier of why this happened, and the misalignment with the quarterback situation, the backup quarterback situation. Like, it was not Kevin O'Connell, and I would even venture to say Quasi, like, did not envision Sam Howell as their second quarterback in that room, and just the bundling of it all and not having a plan.
Judd certainly didn't.
Judd spotted it from the minute mini camps and OTAs.
It took Quasi a little bit longer than it took Judd. Judd was like 5 minutes. He ain't going to be on the roster.
I think Kevin probably saw that pretty quickly too.
Oh,
in
yeah,
retrospect.
yeah.
But
He definitely did.
But to your point, if the second biggest thing is, hey, this draft track record is a disaster, we don't trust Quasi to oversee this draft process, then you knew that 3 weeks ago. Why not get a head start? Why wait until after the draft to put someone in that spot? So I agree with you. That is also weird timing, unless, as a recklessly speculative emailer pointed out earlier, you've already planned to trade a bunch of your first and second round picks to Cincinnati for Joe Burrow, and it doesn't matter, Thor. But short of that, it is weird timing on the. We'll figure it out in like June who our next head of football ops is.
And I would certainly get, the thought of like, okay, you start extrapolating it out. And if there was a specific roster thing of we can't get Quasi on the same page with them, maybe, and like, what could that be? And then you start thinking about the quarterback thing. But if it's a big quarterback transaction, I just don't know where you're going to turn. The Chargers aren't going to trade you Herbert. The Ravens are not going to trade Lamar Jackson. And I do not believe the Joe Burrow thing can happen. Joe Burrow is represented by the same agent that J.J. McCarthy is, and that agent has had friction with the Vikings in the past. You think he's going to help facilitate that transaction? Why would he? All parties would have to want it for him to have any incentive, whatsoever. I don't see that one happening. And so then, like, where do you turn? There's not many free agent quarterbacks. There's only the one in the draft that can start right away. So I'm just really confused on this thing from a bunch of different angles. Unless there's something out there that we haven't heard yet.
We have another person to add to the party here. You're ready, right? You're not on like an agent call? Okay, thumbs up there. Jeremiah Sirles.
Hello,
from the
buddy.
O-line committee. Jumping in, man.
Hello.
What's up, Jay?
How's everyone's Friday?
Can you bump your mic
absolutely.
up a little bit?
I can always do anything
Look
for
at
you,
that.
Phil.
There we go.
Listen, happy Friday, everyone. Isn't this how we all wanted to spend our Friday
I took
afternoons?
the day off, Jeremiah. I was in the golf simulators. I was a third of a high noon in, and then all hell broke loose.
Then you chugged it, and then you moved your way
and I
here.
came over here. That's what I did.
So I don't know, your thoughts. Quasi fired by the Vikings today.
I mean, listen to what you were talking about there right before I jumped on here. It's.
Oh, by the way, Thor Nystrom, Jeremiah
Hi,
Sirles.
Thor.
I don't think you've ever been on
Jeremiah.
a podcast together.
Hi, Thor. How are you?
Doing
A lot love your work. But when I was talking, like listening, this is 100% a coup, and I am convinced.
Yeah.
This was Kevin O'Connell got B-Flow back, and B-Flow and him said, "We can do this. We can do it better. We can go forth and conquer." See you, bud. And now, if I'm the Wilfs, I can understand it because I can go, okay, you make the decisions. You make the decisions. You make everything up to you. And either you're going to crush it and you're going to be here for a long time, or snippity snap, I'll see you on somebody else's roster in 2027.
Correct. Correct.
I mean,
and that comes back to, Jay, I was telling these guys before that there have been some rumblings, unconfirmed, but I will toss it out to you, that part of the deal of Brian Flores coming back on a huge contract. Like he's not your typical DC right now. Incredibly well paid, but part of it was that O'Connell and Brian Flores would get more personnel say in the draft. And so it makes sense. And it also makes sense. Like this is a terrible thing to think, but this is the National Football League, so I'm very comfortable thinking it's true that you would have sent Quasi to the Senior Bowl to put the final to stab him for the last time when he's not there. This basically is the football version of a mafia hit, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's what
It's
it feels
Goodfellas.
like.
Here's my biggest thing, and maybe this is just the agent piece in me. The draft thing is what it is. Like, I'm not too concerned about not having it like a head GM in the draft. I think the scouts. They've been there. Shilaton's been there forever. He does a fantastic job. But they've got a great scouting system put together. But to go into free agency without a GM is a totally different ballgame. That, for me, is the more alarming thing of what's going to happen here in 4 weeks at the Combine, what's going to happen in mid-March. Now you're talking Kevin O'Connell, and now you're talking that Brzezinski is going to have to figure out how to get yourself under this cap and have those uncomfortable conversations with the agents of, hey, your player needs to pay a pay cut, or, hey, we need to release your player. Like, those type of things are the GM's role and the GM's job to communicate with guys like me. Are those now conversations that Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are having? Like, that's the bigger problem. I think the free agency thing without a GM is a way bigger issue than the draft without a GM.
I'm glad you brought this up because it reminds me, Judd and Dex, remember we on one of our episodes last March or April, like kind of once the first and second wave of free agency had started to play out, and our guy Doogie from Channel 5 came on and said, hey, just like talking to some agents around the league and even some people in other front offices, it was Kevin O'Connell at the Combine and Kevin O'Connell, like even leading up to free agency, that was driving a lot of meetings last year. And it made some people wonder around the league, is Kevin like running their free agency?
That's right.
He's like super front and center and running some of these meetings with prospective free agents. And it was something to note a year ago that, oh, okay, I guess, I don't know, is this like Quasi just kind of empowering him to do this? Is it the Wills
He was
empower
sick,
him?
right?
Well, he was sick for a portion of, was it the Combine?
Yeah. That was the Combine because
Okay.
they're like, where's Quasi? And they're like, he's up in bed sick.
And Kevin was like in the suites and whatever, running
right.
the show on some of this stuff. So
I've heard that prior to this that I talked with an NFL agent that said that he had been in negotiations with the Vikings where Quasi wasn't within 200 miles of the room or the discussion. That it was more going through Rob, and these are one-off kind of things. That's a contract negotiation thing, and obviously Rob is instructive in that. He's a key piece that the Vikings
he's huge
do.
in that.
Yeah, but like this whole negotiation, I guess, Quasi wasn't involved with. You don't know on some of the one-off things. With Brzezinski in the draft, that it's been so long now where you have the four sort of down draft classes. You're coming off an administration that wasn't so good with drafting. This coming draft class, you take out Quasi, and again, now it's Rob Brzezinski going around the room like, who do you like? Who do you like? It's not a really good plan, and I don't understand why you're not going to go and start interviewing GM candidates right now, unless, as the Wilfs, it's sort of the thing that you were presenting, where it's like, we'll give KOC and the staff, we'll give them one more year, and we don't want the established GM right now. We don't want to give out a multi-year contract because what if we're going to have to blow the thing up anyway? That's what you sort of start wondering with this. But yeah, this is not great. The timing of this is not great. This is just really a really confusing time.
I think the reason that they're not hiring a GM until after the draft is called plausible deniability. Right? That draft, that GM's going to be able to come in and go, hey, none of that was my fault. I didn't do any of that. I didn't agree. I didn't pick that guy up. I didn't extend that guy. I didn't cut that guy. I didn't draft that guy. It is all, listen, whoever they hire as GM, he's doing nothing more than evaluating the coaching and evaluating the coaching staff for the Wilfs in 2027. That's it. That's it. He's going to have no say on this roster besides final cutdowns, right? Besides final cutdowns, that's it. And let's be real, 85% of the roster is already set by the time camp starts. That's how it always goes. You have the final pieces there at the end and that piece there. But this is the new GM's going to come in, look at everything across the board, report back to the Wilfs, and then he will be the one that has to drive the ship in 27. But I totally get now, if you're not hiring a GM, you're telling Kevin, you're the captain now, dude. If it sinks, great. If it swims, great. But it's all going to be up to you.
Do you think, though, that there's a chance, and I threw this out before, I believe the situation in San Francisco was when John Lynch got the job, Kyle Shanahan helped pick him. Do you think there's a chance, because the Wilfs do like O'Connell a lot, and I do agree there's a hot seat, but do you think that there's a chance that post-draft Kevin O'Connell helps pick the GM. I forget his name. He's got a goofy name, much like Judd Zolgad. But the guy that got the GM job with the Jets.
Self-awareness by you right now.
Was, well, I mean, it's a goofy name. But the Jets GM was O'Connell's roommate, I think, at San Diego State.
Yeah.
And there was some rumblings that O'Connell was trying to get him in here and Quasi out last summer. You think there's a chance that they're going to double down and try to create, because you know as well as I do, and it goes so against football culture. The Wilfs don't like conflict.
They also hate losing.
Yeah.
Right. And so there's two paths here. And I think Thor, you'll agree with me on this. You got two paths, right? Hire Kevin O'Connell's buddy and let him continue to drive the ship. Hire the big voice and the adult in the room that will put the foot down and say, no, I am decision maker. You all report to me. I have final say. Or is it going to continue to be this parallel path with whoever they bring in as GM with Kevin O'Connell, and he drives the ship on where the direction of this Vikings team is headed? I think those are really the only two options here, and they'll be just very telling over who they hire post-draft.
Yeah, and it's just kind of odd. You go through where this over the next 3 months here, it seems like you're going to give all the power to the guy that you're going to put on the hot seat for next year. But then, you think about the next candidate, and there's already been reporting of like, this time the Vikings are going to go the other way, and they had the analytics guy and the guy, but this time they're going to go with the old school kind of a guy and this scouting. So now we're going to go back to a Rick Spielman kind of a guy. But my question is, if that's been decided or that's what you're thinking right now, why not start interviewing those guys now? Unless it's, again, putting all the eggs in the O'Connell basket. You get it for one off season. This is what you wanted. If you want it, you get it. But then next year, your job is on the line. It just seems really odd. Seems really odd.
Listen, we can debate on this all day long. It's going to come down to who's throwing the freaking football next year. Like, let's not mistake ourselves about whatever happens next year, whether it's good or bad, will all depend on who throws the football. Is it going to be Kyler Murray? Is it going to be Kirk Cousins? Is it going to be J.J. McCarthy? Is it going to be Mac Jones? Whoever it's going to be will fully determine on whether this makes sense or not next year. And I am still uncertain on which direction Kevin O'Connell goes. I am still uncertain if he's still like, no, we're doubling down on JJ and we're rolling, or if this was a way for him to be like, hey, pull a Pagula and go, hey, this was Kwesi's guy. Like, this wasn't me. Like, and just fracture the relationship and move on.
I don't know if you guys saw this, but Diana Rossini reported before, and there was she had 3 bullet points of what led to this. Bad drafting by Quasi. Then it was cited the Daniel Jones thing and what went wonky with that. And then the last one she tosses out was the Rodgers thing last offseason. What I found so interesting about that was Rossini and her team themselves had reported last spring that Kevin O'Connell was the one that was making the quarterback decisions for the organization. Right. And so now I would really love to know, what are they? Maybe that's Kwesi calling in right now to give me the full story. Who is on what side of that? Right. Yeah. And of course you want to know that, because now, what is this new? Are these new decision makers who have this power? Are they going to push for right now? But yeah, it's pretty fascinating when you think about the quarterback position to Jeremiah's point.
That's all. It's all this comes down to. I mean, it 100%. And I think this was a tad emotional by the Wilf family. Right, dude, a little bit emotional.
Seeing Darnold in the Super Bowl is embarrassing.
It's embarrassing, but at the same time, the timing of it to me feels like B-Flow got figured out. Kevin got his right hand back. Hey, we can do this better. We don't respect him. We don't believe in him. We don't think he adds him. We don't think he adds a bunch to the pie. All of it just comes down to, I don't know, man. It's fascinating. It's going to be a mess in free agency, I feel like, because I think another reason they're waiting till post-draft, and the more I think about it, is it's not a super desirable place to walk into right now. Do I want to walk into a GM role where we have no idea who my quarterback's going to be? I have $50 million over the cap. I have an extremely old roster. So the first thing I'm going to have to do as new GM is walk in and go, hi, Wilfs, can I have a check for $50 million so I can, restructure a bunch of these guys and move, post-draft, all that's been settled, all that's been taken care of, and you truly can let a GM come in post-draft and usher his structure, his vision, his role, as long as it's not Kevin O'Connell's buddy.
Yeah. Hey, Jeremiah, thanks for jumping in here. Yeah. You got this is the thick of it for agent season, and so we appreciate you. You can find more of Jeremiah on O-Line Committee where we're pumping out multiple podcasts a week, film breakdowns, and Thor, dude, thanks for jumping in as well on this crazy day. Thor Talks Purple, you guys. I think that's up now, or it's going to be pretty soon here. You and Jason Harmon reacting to this. Wait, you're welcome to hang out with us still, Thor. I will cut Jeremiah loose because he's got agent things to do. But Jay, we'll see you on O-line committee next week, buddy.
Yeah, have fun, boys. Happy Friday.
All right.
You too. Thanks, Jeremiah.
And Thor, if you have to bounce. If you want to hang. But we do want to go through and get back to some fans here that are waiting. This impromptu Vikings vent line has broken out as well. Over 7,000 of you still hanging out live on the Purple Daily YouTube channel. If you haven't, maybe you're new and you were looking for some new Vikings content today or this week, welcome to Purple Daily. Click that subscribe button, the like button. You can find Thor Talks Purple every day on the Score North YouTube channel. Our new Football Takes podcast as well. It's youtube.com/@ScoreNorthFootballTakes. And then the O-line committee, the aforementioned with Jeremiah Sirles and Alex Boone. So, Dex, who's next on Ventline as we react to Quasi getting fired?
Boys, I'll hop out and let you guys take over. But yeah, anyone else out there that wants more of my thoughts on the Quasi firing, Jason and I went live, or not live, but we recorded right after that news came out. So we got an hour on that on the Thor Talks Purple channel.
Love it, dude. Awesome. All right, Thor, go mix in a water and take a breath after a crazy week. All right.
I need a drink is what I need. Yeah. But yeah, I'll talk to you boys soon. What a wild day in Minnesota.
Yeah.
Thanks, Thor.
See you, buddy. All right. We'll keep it live here, man. We'll keep it live here on the Purple Daily YouTube channel.
Let's go to Dylan next year. Dylan,
Hi.
what's up, man?
What is up, guys?
What's up, dude?
You have no idea how big of a fan I am of you guys. Me and my wife went up to Minnesota for the first time ever on Christmas. It was a big gift of hers to me. I got diagnosed with cancer in September, leukemia, and she was like, hey, since we're beating that, we're going to go ahead and go to Minneapolis, and she got me tickets to the Timberwolves game. And so when we went up there, I told her I made a list of all the places you guys sponsor on your show, like Mystic Lakes and all those places. And I was like, honey, we got to go to all these places because they say it's so cool. And I was like, okay, well, they are pretty sweet, man. I went to a lot of the places y'all talk about. So
thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure, guys.
And dude, good luck to you. So you said are you recovering, or what's your status right now?
Well, my hair's growing back, so I still do treatment. Yeah, so it's no big deal. I tell people all the time, man, if you're battling with cancer, if you got anybody that is, just know that cancer can't take anything from you mentally unless you let it. So you got to stay positive, those kinds of things, and it helps to watch you guys. So I have some takes if you guys are ready for them.
Always, Dylan. Let's hear them, dude.
All right, Judd, I've got I know you put a lot of blame on KOC. I want to talk a little bit about that because from our perspective, and I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple teams, with what happened at Atlanta with Kirk Cousins, people look at that and they say, oh, man, Kirk sucks. Well, what we know as football fans is that Kirk is really, really good, top 6 in the country, in history in play action passes. Atlanta Falcons, that coach, played I think the 31st or 32nd least amount of play action passes the year that he played terribly. And so what people blame that on is, oh man, well, hey, Kirk, that was on him. But with JJ McCarthy, 21, 22 years old kid, I'm 26. So, I'm kind of there. I'm not going to say I'm young, but with that, we talk about that and we say, well, it's KOC's fault that he's falling behind. And I see that because he's young, but also with KOC just coming off of a record year, turning around a franchise with Sam Darnold. He did great with Kirk Cousins. And then we get him a super young quarterback. And when that young quarterback plays, below par, we're going to say, hey, KOC, this is on you. I don't know if that's completely fair. I would like to blame a lot of it on KOC. The lack of run game, that's crazy. We have Aaron Jones. The guy's a dog. He's been a dog since I've been watching football. And so what is your take on that? How would you compare how people's perception with KOC and JJ versus Raheem Morris and Kirk Cousins? Is that more of is it different in your opinion?
It's different to me.
Thank you, dude.
Yeah, thank you. It's different to me because of the difference in the age and experience. So, and I thought that the last 5 games sort of proved, and McCarthy did not stay healthy. That's a whole different story. But I thought the last 5 games when KO adjusted and then talked about the fact that he didn't like adjusting, but I thought that showed that if you do adjust, if you do run more, that you're putting McCarthy at least in a favorable position on the Kirk Cousins thing, you know exactly what Kirk does well and what he does not. And what the Falcons did was sort of astoundingly dumb and weird. But I think we're just talking about two also different QBs here, because one's a veteran who's been around for a long time, and one is a kid who you like have to help him out some. And look, McCarthy was at fault too. I feel like it's like I've turned into a McCarthy defender. He doesn't get like full defense from me. There were things he did that were just flat out dumb. But that being said, I thought the last 5 games sort of showed that when KO bent a little bit, it definitely made a difference.
Yeah. By the way, Mark Wilf is speaking right now, and we will relay you any important quotes and anecdotes from this. It's like a Zoom press conference. The most important thing right out of the gate, there will be no further personnel moves in that front office at this time. So it's Kwesi,
So we're not firing
and then
Grigson?
this is it. We're not firing Grigson yet, but they didn't elevate Grigson
I'm gonna have
to
send a
that
text.
role.
I'll send a text message to Mark right now.
Okay.
I will be right back. I have to use the little boy's room.
Do your
because
thing.
This is live.
That's right.
So I will be back in 2 seconds.
Do your thing. All
I
right.
hope it's longer than 2. but
Yeah, it'll be more than 2 seconds.
Yeah.
I lied.
All right. Good luck in there, Sports Dad. Dex, who do you want to go to next? Vikings vent line reacting to the dismissal of Kwesi Adofo-Mensah here.
Yeah, let's go to Sam next year. Sam, what's going on? Sam, there's some nasty feedback. Try rejoining the room or joining your phone. We'll get back to you. Aiden, I know you're itching to get in. Aiden, Victory Monday T-shirt.
Yo.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, boys? I
Love
listen to you guys every day driving to work. My girl got me this shirt for Christmas. So
Dude,
I just want
appreciate
to
you.
crazy day in Minnesota sports. But personally, me, I have more trust with KOC and B-Flow taking the draft in their hands. I think they're gonna get the right guys. I don't know about y'all, but I'll let everyone else hop in because I know people are itching. But
Oh, Aiden, thanks for supporting the brand and for being a regular listener and viewer. I mean, Flores knows personnel, man. Like Flores knows his scheme, his system, and they've made a lot more correct decisions on plugging in personnel than incorrect ones on the defensive side. And even like on the offensive side, they've got good pieces, and I think there's a couple big things to be figured out. Like you got to find out who your starting center is going to be. Are you going to trade Jordan Addison? But the fact that those decisions largely fall in the laps of Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores feels kind of unprecedented, where you basically don't have a general manager until after the draft. And so free agency and draft season is going to be driven by the head coach, who might kind of be on a hot seat if the season goes awry, and Brian Flores. So just a really unique setup, I guess, to use that word.
Absolutely. All right, I think our sports dad's back from the little boys' room.
Good. You
Gotta
are
be good.
muted. Yeah.
Gotta unmute yourself.
That didn't take 2 seconds, so I
Okay, good.
apologize. It took longer than I thought it might.
Well, I hope so.
It's okay.
A lot of coffee.
Hoping so.
A lot of coffee.
So much coffee.
Let's go to David. Hey, David, what's up, man? You're on Vikings Vent Line. How you doing?
Good, guys. Can you hear me? How are you?
Yeah, what's up,
can.
David?
Yep.
Nice. Phil, first, I got to get this out of the way. I'm here for the Indiana Jones references and the South Park references.
Good.
I love
Okay.
it. I'm obsessed. Thank you.
Sometimes I wonder, like wrestling references, did anyone get the joke that me or Declan put out? And Judd too. Like Judd makes the '70s TV show references that sometimes go over our heads.
Yeah.
No, very nice. I agree with firing Quasi. I felt like I saw it coming, and I put this in a comment on one of your videos in the last week, but said like, or maybe it was something with Jeremiah, but how often is it where there is a coach and a GM that don't get along, or if they're buddy, if they have a good working relationship or whatever? Because I never felt that between those two. I felt like they're so different. And I feel like someone said it earlier, KOC was mad salt all year, going back OTAs, minicamp, and like you said, it was palpable. Kwesi was very not present the whole season to the public. I felt like maybe that's typical. And I don't know what, how KOC feels about JJ as a player or his future. I feel like he's fine having him, but something tells me he did not have a say in how it was handled. Like, he probably would have been fine putting him on ice for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Let Kirk roll one more time. Let Darnold roll one more time, regardless the cost. And I feel like Sam probably walked out on his own accord. But I felt like, as far as, so he's like, all right, if we're going to play JJ, and I feel like Kwesi probably had, had his hand in forcing him in. I feel like he's like, you know what? This kid's behind. He's never been a thrower like that. And I'm all for JJ. I'm riding the train till he crashes completely. But so I'm going to throw him in the deep end. He's going to sling it. And I felt like the team was probably aware of that. Said, hey, we're going to catch him up regardless of the outcome. And this is the only option. We can't really tootsie foot around this. We got to get going. This year is what it is. Draft next year is not having a lot of QBs. So for me, unless they get Joe Burrow and on, now that dude was fired, I think Josh Allen's impossible, but I thought that was just a fun idea to get Josh Allen. But if it's not those two, I'm out. It's got to be JJ.
Yeah, David, hey, thanks for your thoughts on it. I mean, yeah, it's so on his first point about how it just hasn't felt recently like in the last 2 or 3 years, like Kwesi and Kevin O'Connell have had a great symbiotic working relationship. Mark Wilf is more or less confirming that in his press conference right now. I'm just going to give you just a few snippets of quotes that are being put out from people who are watching this live. It wasn't about any one decision. This is a long-term ownership decision in a critical off-season. He says it's not about the decision of any one. It's not any one decision or move that was like the catalyst for this. It was the entirety of the last few years. And just not being comfortable moving forward. The most important thing was getting this decision right. We like to be methodical about all of this. And where was the other one here? There was kind of an explosive, spicy one. We need to get to a better place. So kind of confirming that they were just in it wasn't like a bad place in the way that the Browns are always in a bad place, but it just sounds like behind the scenes they were in a bad place with some of these relationships and decisions.
Yeah, I think it's I think what he's saying is exactly right, which is between the moves that can be blamed or were blamed on Quasi and the working relationship between the head coach and the GM, it wasn't working. Yeah. And look, you know what, too? This is not like they hired a longtime football executive who stepped in and it didn't work. They took a chance. Like, they knew what they were doing. And it didn't work out. And I'll go back to what I said. It's partially because you can only reinvent the football wheel of the people in charge so much before people who are also in charge start to bristle. And I think that's the best way. I think the best way to put this is KOC, right or wrong, spent 2025 bristling. He became prickly. He was bristling. He wasn't happy with the direction that franchise was going. Now, can he take a complete pass on that? No, he gets some of the blame. But I think from a front office structure, he said, this is not working. This is not what I want. And I actually think those complaints go back a year, at least a year.
Yeah. All right, Dex, who's next here? A little vent line action.
Jacob, what's going on, man? You're on Vikings vent line. Oh, you just got to unmute yourself, Jacob, on the site. You're just muted right there.
Hey.
Bingo.
Good afternoon, folks.
Yeah, thanks for coming in, man.
Long-time Vikings fan. Been a Vikings fan since the Tavares Jackson days. And we all read the tea leaves. We saw Quasi on the way out the door. I'm hopeful that we get somebody in here that has the mindset and the good mix of the willingness to make the Odell Beckham trade like he did for the Cleveland Browns back in the day, and the draft acumen to actually have a depth that we need, right? Judd, you remind me a lot of my pops. Been a Vikings fan since the 60s and stuff.
Nice.
The change needed to happen. However, like, it might not be. There's a lot of interesting aspects of this stuff, but I've been trying to simulate on Madden how many times we could make to the Super Bowl with this freaking setup that we got right now with JJ McCarthy, and it's not.
So you haven't even been able to get there on Madden?
No.
Okay. What's the furthest you've gotten with this team on Madden?
The divisional round.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So we need big trades, and it's gonna hurt to see these guys go, but it's gonna have to happen, and hopefully we get somebody in the seat that's got the chops and well-rounded. So
Jacob, hey, thanks for coming in. I love that Jacob he's like, well, it can't happen in real life, but I bet you I could simulate it in Madden. No.
Couldn't get him in Madden.
Not even on Madden. All right, Dex, back to the vent lines here.
God, we are just like filled with amazing mustaches. Trey,
Dude,
what's going on?
Stash season, man.
What's going on, boys? Good to be back on here. Speaking of the Joe Burrow thing, I wonder what Billy G is doing right now. If we need somebody with the cojones to make a big trade like that, I think he's the guy. But
what would Billy G, if Billy G was a football general manager, what would he do in the next month?
Oh, he'd offer four first-round picks. Grenard, take your pick of another player, and a third-round pick,
and
or
one of
two
his
third-round
children.
picks. Yeah. He got Quinn Hughes.
Yeah.
Anything is possible.
I don't know. This might be the year, but I'm sure I'm not the first person to say this, but I feel a little, almost, I'd say, disappointed about the firing, just because I think over the season you guys talked so much about how Grigson and Quasi were kind of like a tandem in terms of scouting and acquiring players and whatnot. And then to see Quasi kind of take the fall for that, but then realizing he's not really the football mind behind those decisions, and seeing Grigson still in that position, and even the Wilfs coming out and saying that there's no projected, firings in the near future. It's just like, well, I don't know if that really carries the weight that we thought it would when we were all calling for it earlier on in the season.
I think so. Trey, thanks for jumping in, dude. And what a glorious mustache. If we did the stash rankings in the last hour.
This is like a bullpen.
Yeah.
I feel like
80s
stash
bullpen.
guys are, yeah. I feel like it's, exactly. 70s, 80s, like the Cleveland bullpen.
Pretty soon we're going to get to John Q. And John, you have 60 seconds to shave the safety blanket to make that into a mustache.
Safety blanket.
But, I mean, on the Grigson thing, why don't they fire Grigson, or why? Grigson is not operating this draft process for the next few months with unilateral authority. There's a reason why they moved. They could have easily elevated in the interim Grigson into that spot, who's been a general manager before.
Yes.
It's a very calculated decision to move Brzezinski into that spot. Brzezinski, who's been here since the beginning of the Wilf tenure as owners, and even 5 or 6 years before that.
Yep.
They trust Brzezinski as a liaison and someone to just make sure, and they trust him probably more than other people that they might still be evaluating for jobs like Grigson. And also, I think it means that Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores are really the ones running the next 3 months through Brzezinski, just as a checkpoint, right?
Agreed.
That's just my interpretation of this. And also, for any of us that are speculating, all right, did Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores and whoever else go behind Quasi's back and finally make this move, right? Hey, you have to get rid of this dude. It's possible that that's the way it went down, but Mark Wilf said this decision was 100% an ownership decision, at the very least, to at least hey, this is, we made this decision. Don't be putting that on Kevin O'Connell going around anyone's back. But that's good leadership by the Wilfs. It's good leadership just to say, hey, we're the owners. This is us. We made this decision. Even if you had some people come to your office and say, dude, this is not workable.
What if he had said, all right, the building's on fire, basically? This building, I thought it was bad.
So
It was
Kevin
Zimmer
came
Spielman.
to me and said, listen, I can't work with this guy anymore. And so we had to make a decision, quite frankly.
I would say this. So usually when this happens, because they will have a GM after the draft that they'll name eventually, I would say by the start of the season, you will see major front office changes of scouts, Like if Quasi brought in a scout, that scout's in jeopardy. And I would say that Grigson will be just quietly, probably one day in June, let go.
Yeah.
So like I wouldn't be concerned. Oh my God, Grigson's driving this ship. They probably didn't see a need yet, but like it's natural if a GM gets let go, then you just have an off season once the draft is done of guys being let go.
Here, real quick, before we get to our last vent liner here and kind of put a bow on this. I just want to read a tweet from All Things MN, a Minnesota sports fan on Twitter here.
Sure.
Put it in the reckless speculation bin here.
Reckless speculation.
Kwesi has the Harbaugh ties. Kwesi and Jim Harbaugh, I believe, worked together in, was it San Francisco? Like at the beginning of Kwesi's career in front offices.
I think you're right.
And it was kind of believed that Kwesi was the one that, because they hired Kwesi before they hired Kevin.
Correct.
And that Kwesi was driving the Jim Harbaugh bus at the beginning of that process 4 years ago. So those guys have a relationship. And All Things MN tweets, with Kwesi's ties to Harbaugh, are we sure J.J. McCarthy was someone Kevin O'Connell was all in on? Or was the heavy push from Kwesi with his Jim Harbaugh loves J.J. McCarthy, right?
Yep.
Was it more of a Kwesi like, hey, so May's off we're not getting May, we're not gonna get Caleb May or Jaden, so we may never know the full answer. But if it was just up to Kevin, does the quarterback situation play out differently here?
Then I think the question is, if it's just up to Kevin, what was offered to the Patriots for the third pick that was Drake May?
Yeah.
And did Kevin want to give up more? Like, I'm not giving Kevin a pass. When Kevin, a couple of years ago at that, church in Golden Valley or Wayzata said, I'm the quarterback killer, I'm not willing to give him a pass then when McCarthy didn't work out for a season. But I could see it being, we don't know this. We've heard stories that the Patriots laughed and hung up. We've heard stories the offer wasn't sufficient. What's the truth there? But to go back to this, and I thought this was what the point was going to be. Remember, it was very much the Quasi tie that led Jim Harbaugh to fly here and assume he had the job. And then it sounds like some Vikings business people who were in charge of that side were like, this guy's too harsh, too brash, whatever, take your pick. It's a hell of a coach, right? But I think that Jim Harbaugh was no question Quasi's choice. Like, it was not, O'Connell was the compromise of he's a cuddly, friendly guy, comes off that way. Harbaugh comes off as sort of a more abrasive guy, which is a whole different discussion of Quasi probably at some point in time saying, you guys should have listened. But I mean, that's a whole different thing. So there's a lot of things where this could have gone sideways, Phil, because to your point, Quasi was hired first with very much the intention of him helping pick the coach, and he sort of picked his coach, and someone with the Vikings is like, can't do that one.
Yeah, so it's like just disconnect after disconnect. Okay, let's go to John Q here, our last vent liner. Thanks for waiting for a long time, man. We
I'm honored. Thank you for having me on. Really, to me, this shades to the whole time I've been thinking, like 2010, when you were trying to rebuild this, you're trying to put something back together. You bring Favre back. I remember like the Zoom in, the ESPN breaking both times of like Favre, like the plane, when they're following him. And that was great. But then you had the Moss trade and then dump. You had the Thielen trade and then dump this year. It was just, it echoed it to me, the whole thing. And so I kept always thinking of that this whole time. So just everything seemed off. And I always go back to, and I'm not sure, I share this a lot in my friend group, but the competitive rebuild strategy that began this whole thing to me is really, I think, just something that needs to be examined and then thrown into the trash forever, because we've seen what this happens is the roster then is lopsided. You have some old guys, at times it seems like they're competitive and throughout that, all the moves that they've made. And then this year is just a culmination of all these wacky things. So for it to end on a wacky GM firing, on a wacky time with him, like Joe Pesci or whatever in any of those mobster movies where he gets he's like down at the Senior Bowl. KOC is here. It's just like he walks into a room and all of a sudden he's like, oh, bang. This isn't what is this, guys? I thought this was a party for me.
Yeah.
The culmination of a
It's a goodbye
wacky
party.
year.
Yeah.
The culmination of a wacky year with the injuries, Darisaw and all of those guys, and just I know I'm rambling, but I just wanted to get those points out. It just seems weird to me. So it fittingly ends in a wacky way with a capital W of just everything that happened this season. So to have it this way, we'll see what happens going forward. But low key, it also seems like Kevin's in control this year. Brian Flores, head coach in waiting if things don't go well, because I don't know, you have this guy on the roster who I think has probably overperformed with the roster that he has versus KOC on the offense. I don't know. That's a debate that we can have now for a long time because it's the off season. So,
no, John, thank you, man. Putting a good bow on this thing on the vent line portion of the reaction.
John brings up a point that we could actually do an entire show on too, though, because the competitive rebuild was the Wilfs. They do not want to rebuild ever.
Yeah.
And I think there does become a question just from a 10,000-foot view of, I know the Wilfs don't like interfere day to day, but at what point in time do they back off, hire people that they trust and say, whatever you think is best? Not take Zimmer's team and win because Zimmer was a bad coach, you know? And what's funny is in 2022, the competitive rebuild worked as far as 13 wins and you got back to the playoffs. But at the end of the day, it got you nowhere near a Super Bowl. And I think that there becomes a question of, you know, if Ryan Poles said, I think we should blow it up. We're getting old. We don't really have, you know, the quarterback is Kirk. He's paid too much. Do the Wilfs ever back off and say, you know what? Okay. Don't love it, but okay.
Yeah, I don't think they're the NFC Steelers. You know, the Steelers.
I agree with you.
The Steelers would, you know,
right.
they would rather fight tooth and nail to get that 9th win and stay above 500. And I generally agree. Like the minute that you start playing to, if we don't think we can win a Super Bowl, then we're better off tanking. Then you're sacrificing building winning culture, which is the real driver of winning a Super Bowl, for draft picks. And that's when you find yourself in the spot that the Jets and the Browns and the Raiders and the Titans are frequently in, where you're devoid of culture and winning culture. So I wrestle with that. And the Bears have mostly been a team that is just like every 3 years cycling through.
The Patriots are now the poster child of if you do it right, but you got to get the quarterback.
Yeah, but they didn't even do it right. They whiffed on their coach, but then they moved off after
worked out
1 year,
perfectly.
and then
I mean, they made the most.
But they didn't plan for that. They wanted to be good with Gerard Mayo. You know,
I wonder sometimes if Quasi got the job in part because he told the Wilfs what he knew they wanted to hear as opposed to what they should have heard.
Yeah. So wow, and there's still over 6,000 of you guys.
Are we done already?
Already.
It's been like a telethon. It's been great though. What a day.
Yeah, just insanity across.
Declan tried to take the day off. It feels like that was 2 days ago now that Declan was off.
No, dude. So yeah, we're gonna see what other information comes out. We'll hit you again over the weekend with another Purple Daily episode, and then next week we'll have plenty of latest Vikings news, and I think we'll do our next blueprint. This would be a good week next week to do a blueprint episode.
Sure.
With Thor back from the Senior Bowl and the Vikings blowing up their front office here. So thank you guys for spending your time with us, and for, if you haven't, clicking the subscribe button, the like button on this episode. And wow, another day in Vikings land.
You know what? The poor Twins. They can't stay on the front page of a website now to save their lives. They fire their president, and everyone's like, "Oh my God, the Twins did this!" And now it's going to be like, and the Twins fired Derek Falvey.
Yeah, sorry, Twins. You can't even get a headline or a day to yourself when you fire someone.
The Vikings were like kicking back. They're like, "Should we do anything today?" And then the news breaks. Derek Falvey fired. The Vikings are like, "Let's pull the trigger now."
Do it now. Yeah. All right. For Dex, for day off Dex, have fun with the rest of your quote unquote day off, and the sports dad Judd. Thanks to Jeremiah. Thanks to Thor, Leighton, and all of you guys on Ventline. I'm Phil, and we just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die. Never a dull moment.